Hey y'all, how y'all doing? Y'all all right? Well, good. And if you're not, this too shall pass. As I walk around and do my walk for the day, I wanted to jump on here and have a little conversation. There's been a lot of questions about what's the difference between the Afro Divine feminine and the feminine, or the divine feminine. And I thought I'd jump on here real quick to tell y'all the difference. But let me first go. I'm Dr. Ken K. Lucas, and I specialize in the consciousness, the brain, well, not the brain, but the consciousness, your soul, your spirit, and what makes you respond, react, or behave in a certain fashion. Why I am a therapist in my own right, that is not what I do. Why I can, that is not what I do. Because I find that the westernized standard does not meet the overall healing and management and assistance that we need, especially as people of color, LGBTQIA, the alphabet gang, y'all. Women, those who have experienced not just intergenerational trauma, but complex trauma, epigenetic trauma. And yeah, I'm out of breath because we walk in the day. So while I find that there is benefits and there's help and that therapy and some form of westernized practices is helpful and does work, right? I'm not saying it doesn't, but I think it only works in the hands of people who are committed to the achievement and success of all people of color, but especially Black people of color. Because, or people of the diaspora, I should say, people of the diaspora. Because most of the intentional infliction of pain, oppression, abuse has been done on the diaspora for a long periods of time, right? And that it still continue. Then that doesn't say that other practices or people, I should say people and cultures haven't been harmed or abused or oppressed. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about the longevity of consistent, continuation, nonstop, no breaks, ongoing, no moment to breathe, has only been done to the people of the diaspora. And that's Black, Africans, Caribbeans, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You name it, right? Now, for those who disagree with me, you can, you shall, and you may. And I'm open to discussion and learning because I don't know about everybody's culture and traditions and practices or people. And so I'm open to discussion and learning. So, now that I got the disclaimer out the way, let y'all know I'm Dr. Ken K. Lucas. I'm not a fake doctor. I'm not a fake doctor. PhD earned, research done, and still working. So that you can understand that when I speak, I am not speaking just from my own personal thoughts and opinion. I am speaking from research-based, peer-reviewed, and evidence-found theories, observations, and whatnot. So, hey, y'all, my goal is to walk one lap around here today. And I was going to do 3, but I realized this ground is wet. Is that the mailman? Mailman, blast the music. Anyway, this ground is wet from rain yesterday, so my tennis shoes are actually getting wet. Anywho, let's go back to topic. I think that is the mailman who blasting music down here. Okay, mailman, you better enjoy your time at work. Okay, so the Afro Divine feminine. What makes her different than the feminine or the divine feminine? And so later on, I may do an illustration of this so you can have a visual concept, but I want to give you a summary today. Just a summary. Okay, let's point to the facts of it all. Afro. Afro is very basic, very straight to the point. If you don't understand it, I don't know what rock you've been living under, but Afro means African, right? Which, even though it's a European word, it still means people of color, dark skin, rooted in African tradition, African theory, African cosmology, African mythology, African concept, African whatever, right? And when I say rooted in, for those who, for foundational Black Americans, yeah, this may not be for you, if that's what you believe in, right? Okay, it's rooted in Africa because science has pointed to all things comes out of Africa. All migration happened and started in Africa. And because of that migration, we have a diverse group of people across this globe or universe. Hey, butterfly. And so I took it back to the root of the thing. And the root of the thing is in Africa. No matter which way you split it, no matter which way you like it, it's rooted in Africa. So that's why it's Afro, because it's divine. Second, for those who, just a disclaimer, for those who think they can take this term and make it their own, it's already marked. So do what you want with that. Anywho, so that's the first thing that separates the feminine from the general feminine, which is based in European mythology, European concepts, European theories. And they took the word feminine and used it across a spectrum of things. Okay? So, and it's different. Not saying that it's wrong, it's different, because remember, meaning and definition we create. We create meaning and definition, and because of that creation, we would take a word and use it across multiple ideas and thoughts. So when I say feminine, I'm not talking about the gender of a person. We're not talking about the gender of a person. We're not talking about the sex of a person. We're not talking about who the person like and don't like. Okay? It has nothing to do with your sexual preference. It has nothing to do with who you love when I say feminine. And I need you to understand that concept of feminine doesn't mean femininity. Two different things, okay? Remember I said, I'm a study of the consciousness, right? The consciousness, your soul, your spirit. What makes you you? Not your body, but what makes you you, right? Where your thoughts come from, where your feelings come from. What makes you you? So that is what I study. And because I study the consciousness, when I speak of feminine, I'm speaking of the energy frequency of the feminine, which we have labeled feminine and masculine. So there's energy frequency that we all have. That's from atoms, proton, nucleus, and all that other stuff. That energy frequency that we have within us, we, in some places, label it as feminine and masculine energy. And we all have both. We have both feminine and masculine energy. Fight with your mama. Again, if you understand what I say by energies, then you know I'm not talking about gender, or I'm not talking about desires of the flesh. So that's the second thing that makes us separate or different than others' practices and theories about feminine and what I'm speaking about. Third, which I think is the most important part, because for some, you are familiar with feminine and masculine energy. Great. However, when you think about it, you may think about it in the concept of yin and yang. And this is where the similarity comes in, and even the confusion can pop up. Because while I'm talking about something similar, it's still different. And here's the difference. With the yin and yang concept, you have a circle that's pretty much split in half. Okay, when I say split, I don't necessarily mean straight down a line, but it's equal counterparts. So the circle is two halves of a whole. And with the Afro Divine feminine concept, which comes out of Africa, like the Dogon traditions and other traditions out of Africa, that's not the same theory. In most African practices, and you could do your own research, the feminine energy is like God. It's everything. It's all things. It's totality. So when we start talking about balance, harmony, and I'm going to throw a new word in for you, alignment, is not two counterparts of a whole. Because you can have harmony and balance without having 50-50, right? Without being equal counterparts. Alignment and harmony doesn't mean you have to balance out 50-50 to make 100. It means that everything has to be aligned up accordingly to function and work. Okay? And so when we start speaking of the masculine and feminine energy in the theory of what I'm speaking about, like the Afro Divine feminine, we're looking at alignment so that everything can function and work according to how it's supposed to function and work. That does not mean everything is equal or everything is balanced out. Is it in harmony? Yes. Is it balanced? Yes. But it's not balanced in the concept of 50-50 or equalist or something to be equal. It's not balanced that way. So just think of if you're working on think of a scale. Think of my aunt, right? Think of my aunt. Think of the scale. Think of kinetic studies. Think of the scale of the feather, right, against your, some would say, sins, and you have to balance that out, right? The feather is light. It's so light that the scale barely recognizes it. That's your consciousness, right? Your sins or your life or your experience, I should say, because it's not necessarily sins, it's experience. Your experience is heavy, right? Or your experience is on the next scale. And some will say that you can't really see that experience, right? It's not your body, it's your experience. Is your experience heavier than the feather? It doesn't have to be the same feather. It doesn't have to be the same weight. It doesn't have to be the same material, matter, or energy to be in alignment, to balance out that scale, right? It could be a big ball of energy, which is your experience, right? Which is bigger than that feather, which has more, condensation, more, is more condensed than that feather. But if you have lived right, based on the laws of Ma'at, then you are in balance with the feather because your experience doesn't weigh heavy on you. And it doesn't weigh heavy on those around you that you have engaged with. You have caused no harm, right? You have caused no harm to yourself, and you have caused no harm to others. So that is lightness in your spirit, right? And so that lightness is weighed, or that energy frequency is weighed against the feather. And that energy frequency against the feather would tell you if you are in balance with that feather, if you are in harmony with that feather, or if it's too heavy, that makes the feather be in balance. Or the opposite way, is the feather too heavy, which means you ain't did nothing in the world. Your experience hasn't affected too many people, or I don't know, maybe you was a great, wonderful person, and it's like, oh, okay. But the laws of my aunt are in Kemetic study is not to be lighter than the feather, is to be in harmony with the feather. It's to be in harmony with the feather in order for you to say, for them to say you have lived right. Hope that makes sense to people out there. If it does, say it makes sense. It makes sense. Okay, so when we speak about energy frequencies from the concept of an African tradition, to be clear, there's several different practices and traditions in Africa. Africa is a continent. It's the biggest continent. One of the biggest, if not the biggest. And there's too many countries, traditions, culture, and practices in Africa to sum it up in one thing. So again, when I say I'm speaking from this tradition or African tradition, that means there's several of them that I have researched and that I have looked and compared or come to a conclusion of. Okay. If you are agreeing and understand that, say Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. Okay, cool. Now let's move on. We're still on this third part, right? Yin and yang. So when we think of yin and yang, throw it out the window. That is the Asian or Eastern philosophy, which is not necessarily wrong, because again, the similarities are there. The concept is there. They are closer than the Western philosophies, right? And so we're not going to say they're wrong, because they're not. They are a stepping stone. They are closer to what this concept and this practice is, right? So when we say feminine and masculine energy, think of a circle again, but this time think of the feminine energy being like the earth, everything, all the energy in the earth, but there's a shield, right, over that, around the circle. There's a layer of energy around the circle, and then there's an energy within the circle, okay? And so with that layer of energy in the circle, I'm going to keep it simple for you because it's three layers, but we're going to only focus on two. The middle of that layer, the center of that layer is the feminine energy, right? Which is the consciousness, which is your soul, okay? That is in the center of that, like the mantle of the earth. Think of the mantle of the earth is in the center of the earth. And that mantle holds the earth and everything that was in it together with the gravity of the universe. So everything that's outside of that is the energy frequency that holds it together so that this earth won't go tumbling, that it won't fall, that it won't die, that it won't do all the stuff that it can do if that mantle was not in place. Okay? For those who are scientists out there and may say, well, there's more to it, I know it's more to it. I'm simplifying this concept. I'm not going that deep into it. We could do that later. So just think of the mantle and think of that as being the feminine energy, as being the core of all things. And when that is out of balance, when that is weak, when that is fractured, and when that is messed up, what happens to the rest of the earth? It becomes sick. It becomes endangered. It starts to die out. It starts to weaken. And that threatens everything that's within it. Everything that's within it. Okay? The earth is the masculine energy, the core. The outside of the earth, the surface level of the earth is the masculine energy. The core is the feminine energy. And everything that's in it is your spirit. That's all I got for you today. I just wanted to break that down so you guys to understand what that looks like and what that feels. If you are interested in what I said and learning more about the Afro Divine Feminine, hit me up, right? I want you to engage and comment. Yes, you could tell me I'm wrong. You could tell there's a bunch of crock. You could say all this stuff. Great for you. This is not for you then. But if this resonates with you, if you are called to it, and you want to learn more, I want you to DM me personally. And my team will reach out to you to schedule you or to give you more information about how to study this and about what I'm doing with it. Okay? Talk to y'all later. I did my one lap, y'all. I did my one lap around this terrain, and it was kicking my butt because it does. So, but, mwah! Talk to y'all later.